I brought a business plan. This is completely absurd.
You cannot be serious. You people always dream too big. Maybe try something smaller. A roadside fruit stand might fit you better.
The bank manager laughed so hard that everyone in the waiting room looked up, and the woman holding the loan papers almost forgot how to breathe. The room became quiet for one painful second. Then came the whispers. Some people looked away. Others stared at her dark skin, as if it explained why she stood there with shaking hands. Her name was Zuri. She did not cry. Not because the words did not hurt, because she had spent her whole life learning how to survive them. She slowly picked up the papers that had slipped from her hands. Every page carried months of work. Every number had been checked again and again. Every signature had cost her sleep. She had come to ask for one business loan, nothing more. The manager leaned back in his chair with a smile that felt colder than ice. You people always dream too big, he said.
Maybe try
something smaller. A roadside fruit stand might fit you better. A few people laughed. Zuri looked straight into his eyes. I brought a business plan. He pushed it away without opening it. I don't need to read it. She swallowed the pain building inside her chest. You haven't even looked. I've seen enough. He folded his arms. The bank is not here to throw money away. His name tag read Neil Hart. He had managed the biggest branch in the city for almost 15 years. Everyone knew him. Local business owners greeted him with respect. Young workers hoped one day to become like him. Few people knew another side of him. He believed success belonged to certain people. People who looked like him. People who came from families like his. He never said it loudly in public. Today he did. His voice became softer, almost like advice. You should be thankful someone even gave you an appointment. The words cut deeper than shouting ever could. Zuri quietly gathered her documents. Inside that folder was a plan to build small learning centers where children from poor families could learn technology, reading, and business skills after school. She believed education could change lives faster than charity. She had already found investors willing to support part of the project. She only needed the bank to finance the first building. That building would become proof that children from forgotten neighborhoods deserved the same future as everyone else. But none of that mattered to Neil. He never read a single page. As she reached the door, he spoke one last time. You'll save yourself more embarrassment if you stop chasing dreams meant for other people. She stopped walking. For one heartbeat, the room waited. Would she shout? Would she cry? Would she beg? Instead, she smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the kind people wore when something inside them changed forever. Thank you, she said quietly. Neil laughed again. I didn't help you. You did. She walked out before anyone could understand what she meant. Outside, the afternoon sky hung low over the city. Cars filled the streets. Giant screens flashed bright advertisements across tall glass buildings. Delivery drones crossed above the traffic while people hurried between offices with coffee cups and phones in their hands. The city never slowed down, neither would she. She sat inside her old electric car for nearly 20 minutes without starting the engine. Her hands rested on the steering wheel. Her heart beat so loudly she could hear it. She remembered every job she had worked, cleaning offices at night, packing boxes in warehouses, writing computer code for small companies after midnight, saving every extra dollar, learning about business through free online classes, studying real estate during weekends while others rested. Each step had been slow. Each victory had been earned. Nobody had handed her anything. Then her phone rang. The screen showed one simple name, Owen. He had been her business partner for 6 years. When she answered, he heard the silence before she spoke. It didn't go well? He asked. She laughed softly. No? Rejected? Worse. Another pause. What happened? She told him everything. Every word, every insult, every laugh. When she finished, Owen became very quiet. I'll call our lawyer. For what? For discrimination. She looked through the windshield at the bank. People walked in with hope. Others walked out carrying disappointment. She watched Neil speaking happily to another customer through the large front window. Then she noticed something strange. Construction workers were standing beside the building next door, talking about property maps spread across the hood of a truck. A woman wearing a hard hat pointed toward the bank building itself. An idea flashed across Zuri's mind so suddenly that even she almost laughed. It sounded impossible, It sounded completely crazy, which was exactly why no one would see it coming. "No," she finally told Owen. "We're not calling the lawyer." "What are we doing then?" Zuri kept watching the building. Her voice became calm. "If they won't let me borrow money to build my future," she smiled the same quiet smile she had worn inside the bank, "I'll find out who really owns theirs." Zuri ended the call before Owen could ask another question. She stepped out of the car and walked toward the workers standing beside the empty lot next to the bank. They were busy looking at maps on a digital screen, speaking in low voices. She did not interrupt, she simply listened. One man sighed. "The old owner borrowed too much. Now every building on this block is tied together." Another nodded. "The debt is being sold next week. Whoever buys it gets serious control." Zuri's heart skipped. She thanked them after asking a few simple questions and drove away without looking back. That evening, she and Owen sat inside their small office. The room was plain. 2 desks, 3 chairs. A coffee machine that worked only when someone kicked it gently. Owen stared at her. "You've been smiling for 2 hours. That worries me." She spread city records across the table. "The bank doesn't own the building." He frowned. "What?" "They only rent it." He leaned closer. "Who owns it?" "Not one person." She pointed to the papers. "A property company." She turned another page. "The property company owes money." Another page. "The lender wants to sell the debt." Owen slowly understood. If someone buys that debt, they gain power over the property. "And the bank?" Zuri nodded. "The gatekeeper forgot to check who owns the gate." For the next 3 days, they hardly slept. They searched public records. They studied land reports. They followed company names that led to other company names. One business was owned by another. That one was owned by another. The trail looked like a giant knot. Most people would have given up. Zuri did not. She had spent years solving problems one piece at a time. By the 4th night, she finally found the answer. A small holding company in another city controlled the main debt. Nobody was paying attention to it because everyone wanted larger deals. It was hiding in plain sight. She smiled. "Found you." Owen looked at the screen. "Can we afford it?" "Not all at once." "So? We don't have to." Instead of chasing the whole deal, Zuri started buying small pieces through legal investment groups. Each purchase looked ordinary. Too small to raise questions. 1 share. Then another. Then another. Every move followed the law. Every paper was signed correctly. Every payment left a clear record. She never rushed. She never celebrated. She simply kept moving. At the same time, the bank remained busy. Neil enjoyed another successful week. He approved loans for wealthy clients. He gave speeches about leadership. He posted smiling photos online about helping local businesses. Hundreds of people clicked the like button. None of them knew that, little by little, the ground beneath his office was changing owners. One afternoon, Neil walked past the front windows and noticed Zuri across the street. She stood with a coffee in her hand. She looked at the building, not at him. The building. Neil smirked. He stepped outside. "Lost again?" She turned calmly. "No. You know, people who can't accept failure waste years chasing impossible dreams." She smiled politely. "I learned something valuable because of you." He folded his arms. "Oh? You taught me not to ask the wrong person for permission." He laughed. "Good luck with that." She walked away before he could say another word. Neil watched her disappear into the crowd. For the first time, something felt strange. He could not explain why. Meanwhile, Owen received a late-night message from one of their lawyers. The final seller had agreed to negotiate, not because of luck, because the seller wanted a quiet buyer who could close quickly without attracting media attention. Zuri was exactly that buyer. The meeting took place in a simple office with no cameras. No reporters, no celebration, just signatures. The lawyer slid the papers across the table. "Once these are signed, your holding company becomes the controlling debt holder." Zuri read every page twice. She had learned long ago that excitement made people careless. She signed. Then Owen signed. The lawyer smiled. "Congratulations." Owen laughed with relief. "So, we own the debt?" "Yes." "And if the owner cannot meet the terms?" The lawyer nodded. "You have legal rights over the property." For several seconds, nobody spoke. Years of sacrifice had led to this quiet room. No applause. No music. Just ink drying on paper. Zuri looked out the window. People below hurried through the busy streets. Without knowing, history had quietly changed above their heads. She whispered to herself, "Never confuse silence with weakness." Over the next week, the final legal steps moved into place. Every document was checked, every payment cleared, every approval arrived. The holding company officially gained control. Only a handful of lawyers understood what had happened. The bank did not. Neil certainly did not. He was preparing for the biggest business breakfast of the year. Important investors, city leaders, and bank executives would gather inside the headquarters. He planned to give the opening speech. He even practiced it in front of a mirror. The future belongs to those who recognize opportunity. He smiled proudly. Across the city, Zuri placed one final document into a black folder. On top lay a freshly signed property deed. Beneath it rested a new lease agreement. And underneath both was another document that made Owen stare in disbelief. "What is that?" he asked. She closed the folder. "The new terms for every tenant in the building." Owen blinked. "Even the bank?" She looked directly at him. "Especially the bank." The morning sun rose over the city as black cars pulled into the bank headquarters. Executives stepped out wearing expensive suits. Neil straightened his tie, ready to welcome them with confidence. He had no idea that before the day was over, he would no longer be standing in someone else's building. He would be standing inside hers. The entrance hall buzzed with quiet conversations as business leaders shook hands and cameras flashed. Neil stood near the front doors, smiling, as if the whole city belonged to him. He welcomed each guest with confidence. Then the room suddenly became silent. Everyone turned toward the entrance. Zuri walked in wearing a simple navy blue suit. She carried a black folder under one arm. Owen followed a few steps behind with two lawyers. Neil frowned. "You must be lost." She kept walking. "No, this event is for invited guests." One of the lawyers stepped forward. "She is expected," Neil laughed. "I think there's been a mistake." At that moment, the chairman of the bank hurried across the room. Instead of greeting Neil, he stopped in front of Zuri. "Good morning," he said politely. "We've been waiting for you." Neil's smile disappeared. "What is going on?" The chairman looked confused. "You weren't informed?" "Informed about what?" "The ownership transfer." Neil blinked. "What transfer?" Without saying a word, Zuri opened the black folder and placed several documents on the conference table. The chairman looked at them, nodded, and slid them toward Neil. His hands trembled as he picked up the first page. Property ownership, lease authority, registered deed. He turned another page, then another. His face slowly lost all color. "No," his voice barely came out. This can't be right." The lawyer calmly answered, "It has already been approved and registered." Neil looked at Zuri. She met his eyes. "Yes." He flipped through the papers again as if different pages would change the truth. "They're fake. The city registry disagrees. They're impossible. The law disagrees." The room was so quiet that the sound of the air conditioner seemed loud. Neil looked toward security. "Remove them." The security supervisor did not move. Instead, he looked at Zuri. "Ma'am, would you like us to escort your guests to the boardroom?" Neil stared in disbelief. The same guards who saluted him every morning were now waiting for instructions from her. It felt unreal. Inside the boardroom, every executive took a seat. No one spoke. Zuri remained standing. She looked around the room before speaking in a calm voice. "I came here last week asking for a loan." Several executives exchanged confused looks. "I brought a business plan that was never opened." She gently placed the untouched folder beside the deed. "I was judged before anyone read a single page." The chairman slowly looked toward Neil. Neil lowered his eyes. Zuri continued, "I almost believed your manager when he said some dreams were not meant for people like me." Her words carried no anger. That somehow made them even stronger. But I remembered something. She paused. "When one door closes, don't waste your life begging outside it." She rested one hand on the signed deed. "Buy the building." A few people gasped. Others looked down, embarrassed. Neil could barely breathe. Every cruel word he had spoken returned to him like an echo. The laughter, the insults, the way he had pushed away her business plan without reading it. Now he sat inside a building controlled by the woman he had tried to humiliate. Zuri opened another document. "This is the new lease agreement." She slid copies across the table. The rent will remain fair. Everyone looked surprised. There will be no sudden price increase. Another surprise. No revenge fees. Even Owen smiled. That part had been entirely her choice. But there is one condition. Neil slowly looked up. Every business inside this building must sign an equal treatment policy. Silence. No customer will ever be judged because of skin color, family name, accent, clothing, or where they started in life. The chairman nodded first. I'll sign. One by one, the executives followed. Only Neil remained frozen. Zuri looked at him. You once told me the bank wasn't here to throw money away. His lips shook. You were right. He looked confused. She smiled gently. Money should be invested where people have vision. She picked up the business plan he had rejected. I found another way. The chairman stood. Mr. Neil, your actions have placed this institution in a very difficult position. Neil closed his eyes. He already knew what came next. You are relieved of your duties, effective immediately. No one argued. No one defended him. He quietly removed his employee badge and placed it on the table. For the first time in many years, he walked through the lobby without anyone following him. Outside, he stopped and looked back at the building. It had never truly been his. He had only worked inside it. Across the street, children laughed as they walked home from school. Zuri watched them from the boardroom window. Those children reminded her why she had started this journey. Months later, the first learning center opened its doors. Children filled bright classrooms with curious eyes and hopeful smiles. They learned reading, science, coding, business, and the power of believing in themselves. Above the entrance hung a simple sign. Opportunity lives here. People from every neighborhood came. No one asked about skin color. No one asked about family wealth. Only one question mattered. What do you dream of becoming? News of Zuri's story spread across the country. Many people thought the greatest victory was buying the building. They were wrong. The greatest victory was proving that dignity cannot be denied by a closed door. Prejudice cannot defeat patient wisdom, and real power does not come from sitting behind a desk deciding who deserves a chance. Real power comes from becoming the person who builds new doors, opens them wide, and invites everyone inside.